Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Top 15 Best Plot Twists and Shocking Moments. This video is a Patreon requested video requested by Patron Ricky, who asked me to count down my favorite plot twist or slash shocking moments. Now, this was a very, very hard list to make. I thought it was a great idea, but, you know, when I first read Ricky's message on a suggestion for a video, I misread it and thought it was the top 15 shocking moments slash plot twists in TV shows. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to be easy. That shouldn't be too hard. But then when I read it again, it said TV shows and movies, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, that opens it up to everything. And so I literally took like 2 weeks thinking this over, because it was hard to like remember everything and come up with all the best shocking moments and plot twists. And I know there's going to be some that I missed and that people are going to post in the comment section of this video. It's like, oh, you forgot about this one. I'll be like, damn it! That should have been in my top 5. But, you know, I mean, that's why I took like 2 weeks to think about it, because at first I couldn't think of that much, and I could think of some more and then some more. And yeah, and it's hard because I'm looking at all the shows and plus all the movies I've seen. Now, as always, this list is just my own personal opinion, and that's so. For this list, I was thinking back in my personal life, watching film and television, which ones shocked me the most? Which ones was I most like, oh my god, couldn't move, mouth open? And whether it be a plot twist or not all of the entries on this list are plot twists. Some of them are just shocking moments. Not like twisty the way you would think of twist. And to be honest, I think there's a lot of overrated bad plot twists out there. There's I've noticed criticism I've given on a lot of shows or films with bad plot twists or unnecessary plot twists or too many plot twists is that sometimes, and this is something a lot of writers classes will teach amateur writers, is that a lot of times people just throw in plot twists in place of powerful writing where they think a twist would suffice. And so I actually think it's difficult and actually very impressive when it's done correctly. Now, I will not be putting The Sixth Sense on my list, because although I admit that was a shocking twist and I definitely did not see it coming, I didn't think that's that good of a movie. It was mostly boring, and all it was the twist. So what I'm going to be looking at is stuff that I liked, that I loved, like some that I think the twist or the shocking moment enhanced and made it good, or was a moment that particularly shocked me and stuck with me and something that stayed with me. Now, I also decided to exclude twists that I already knew about, or shocking moments that I already knew about before I even saw it. Like, for example, in The Empire Strikes Back, the twist that Darth Vader is Luke's father. I probably speak for a lot of people when they say they were well aware of this before they saw Empire Strikes Back. I saw Return of the Jedi first because I was like 4 years old when that came out, and so I was more aware of it, and they talk all about, you know, Darth Vader being Luke's father, so that was never a surprise for me. And so I almost put it on here, but then I thought, no, because I'm going to have to imagine what it was like for those who were shocked by this, because I wasn't. So I'm excluding stuff like that and just making it more sort of personalized and focusing on things that particularly shocked me personally. And I suppose that includes movies that were spoiled for me, but there wasn't really any that I liked that were spoiled for me. At least not that I'm aware of. Maybe I'm forgetting something. I know I'm going to forget something. And the very obvious statement, which should be obvious in a video about plot twists, is this video will contain spoilers. Duh. Now, you don't really know what spoilers I'm going to give what show. Maybe it's a show or movie that you want to see still and you haven't had spoiled for you. So, each time I say an entry on my list, I'm going to give the name of the movie or show first. And that will give you time to skip ahead. There, I'll put a chapter list in the description, which will have little divided things on the time frame of the YouTube video. Hopefully they're doing that at the moment. And so if there is a movie or TV show I name, you can just skip ahead to the next chapter if you don't want to be spoiled, although you got to be a bit fast on the trigger, because right after I name the show or movie, I'm going to name what the plot twist is. So be forewarned about spoilers. About most of this stuff is quite old anyway, but you never know. So before I get into my top 15, because goddamn, this was really, really hard to whittle down to just 15. There were so many great twists, and it was hard to like shove them all in and fit them all in a list. So I'm gonna quickly rattle off 5 honorable mentions that didn't quite make my list. First honorable mention is Game of Thrones. Ned Stark loses his head. Pretty self-explanatory. This was a hugely shocking moment. Sean Bean was on the fucking cover of the DVD. He was the protagonist, main character of the show. Of course they won't kill him off, but they did. So the next honorable mention on my list is from Black Mirror, the episode White Christmas. Matt was in VR trying to convince a cookie to confess the murder this whole time. So in this episode, John Hamm is in a cabin with this dude, and they're telling stories back and forth, but then it's revealed at the end of the episode that they're actually in a virtual environment, and the man that John Hamm's talking to is just a digital copy of a real-life man convicted of murder, and he's just trying to get him to confess when the real life version of him wouldn't. Pretty powerful stuff. Next honorable mention is from The Prestige. The magician has a twin brother that shares his life. So in this film, you meet this magician who has this act called the Vanishing Man, where he can go through one door and automatically reappear in another. And it turns out it's because there's twin brothers, and they're like switch back and forth for different identities. And so everyone only thinks there's only one person, when in fact there's two brothers. Next honorable mention is Westworld. The villain had already won. This is from season 4 of Westworld. What a really shocking twist, where there's a couple storylines going back and forth. One of this really weird version of New York City, and the other where there's our heroes trying to save the day and stop the villain from winning. But then we find out that the storyline with the weird New York is actually the future, where the villain had already won, and they had already killed off the heroes that already failed, and the villain has already succeeded in enslaving all of humanity. It's pretty powerful stuff. And final honorable mention is from the movie Predestination. The protagonist is their own mother and father. This involves a time traveler who is traveling back in time, and as a young woman, she met this man, fell in love, had a baby, then the baby disappeared, and then the man she met disappeared, and later she finds out that she's actually a man and is forced by the doctors to switch her sex to become a man, and then finds out that that was the man who traveled back in time to her younger self and had sex with her, and then the baby was taken and traveled back in time. And the baby, in fact, was them. So all versions of this is the same person. Maybe not biologically possible, but very interesting time travel story. So my next honorable mention is an example of what I was talking about earlier, how I knew I would forget something. So as I was editing this video, I remembered another entry that should have been on my list, and this probably would have made my top 10. It should be in my top 10 actually, but I forgot about it, and so I don't want to move everything around, so I'm just going to mention it here as an honorable mention, and that is from Lost. John Locke couldn't walk before coming to the island. So as you will see, I have two other entries from Lost in this list, making it the most reoccurring one on my list. And that's because I think Lost was very good at shocking people, and that's maybe why I forgot about this one, because I already had two from Lost, but this one was an extremely powerful one that happened in the 4th episode, so early in the show, where we meet John Locke, this outdoorsman who is like hunting boars and very active, and he seems very knowledgeable about hunting and the outdoors and surviving in the wild, and people were wondering what he did for a living. They thought maybe he was a hitman or a safari guy or something like that, but it turns out we see through his backstories that he was just this pathetic man who worked at an office who everyone picked on and made fun of. But the big reveal comes at the end of the episode when he goes to go on a walkabout tour in Australia and is denied going on the tour because he's in a wheelchair and can't use his legs. He can't walk. And then we cut to him arriving on the island for the plane crash, and we see that he is able to use his legs and stand up, much to his surprise, thus implying the island healed him and has healing powers. And this was a really, really touching, powerful moment. To me, I always say this is when the show Lost really began, or really started to shine, because this is when it made it really clear how the island is special, how the island has special powers, and it also was such a shocking reveal because we see this man who's so confident and strong and able to kill boars and really strong outdoorsman, and we see that in fact he was just this guy who worked at an office who couldn't even walk, and now the island has turned him into someone else. That was really, really powerful, and I think it really made the show. Alright, so those are my honorable mentions. So now let me get into my top 15, starting with number 15 from Babylon 5. Garibaldi was being manipulated by Psychor the whole time. So this is in the 4th season of Babylon 5, where Garibaldi, the security chief on Babylon 5, gets really angsty and upset throughout the season. He eventually quits and goes off to work for some rich guy, and then he's instrumental in taking down his own captain, who was starting a rebellion against Earth, which had become a ruthless dictatorship, and his captain was trying to free Earth from this dictator, but Garibaldi helped the Earth Corps capture him, and it found out that he was actually being manipulated by Walter Koenig's character from Psychor this whole time, because the rich guy in question that Garibaldi was working for happened to have a plot to kill all psychics everywhere in the galaxy, and so Psychor manipulated his mind and messed with him in order to force him to go undercover, and they were manipulating him this whole time, and once he snapped out of it, he hates himself for helping his own captain be caught. And goddamn, this was just such a powerful scene. It really, really hit me. I thought it was wonderfully acted. Just the way that Walter Koenig's character is just taunting him as he's sitting there helpless and realizing that he just was forced to betray the people he cared about the most. It was really powerful stuff. So next is number 14 on my list, Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot is inside Elliot's head. This is from season 1. I think this is definitely way more powerful than the prison reveal in season 2, which I am kind of iffy about, even though this is very, very similar to another more famous instance that will appear later on my list. It was still a really powerful reveal, because you were thinking the whole time that Elliot was being recruited by this elite hacker group, and the leader of the hacker group was Christian Slater's Mr. Robot, a very eccentric person, and then you find out by the end of it that he actually is Mr. Robot, and he was the leader of this hacker group the whole time, and he was just having this inner conversation with himself. Moreover, the woman who was in that group just so happened to be his sister, and he had no idea about that either until he tried to kiss her. Whoops. So it was a really powerful reveal, an emotional reveal, one I thought was done very well. Next is number 13 on my list, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, the episode Whispers. O'Brien was a clone this whole time. So yeah, this is an episodic. I do include episodes. Since I'm including movies, I'll include episodic episodes as well that don't necessarily affect the whole show. But this one was really shocking, and this remains one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine, despite the fact not many people like it. But I was completely blown away by this reveal, because we're following O'Brien throughout this episode and how everyone in the Starfleet seems to be acting very weird, hunting him down. They seem to be collaborating with these aliens, and he's just trying to be a hero. And then he's shot, and we find out the real O'Brien pops out, and we find out the O'Brien we've been following this whole time was a clone, a replicant, as they call him in this episode, who was programmed to assassinate a visiting dignitary. He just had no idea. I thought that was damn twisted, damn dark, and I fucking love it. Anyway, next on my list, number 12, Arrival, from the movie Arrival. The alien language exists outside of linear time. This was a really powerful one, a really unique one too. So we get these flashbacks, or what we think are flashbacks, of the main character played by Amy Adams, of her, I believe it's a son or daughter, I can't remember, her son or daughter dying of a disease, and how that's haunted her, and how these memories seem to be haunting her while she's trying to communicate with these aliens that have landed on Earth, and no one can seem to communicate with them. But we find out at the end that it's revealed that those are in fact not flashbacks, but they're visions of the future. In fact, the alien language that she's trying to decode exists outside of linear time, as these aliens don't perceive linear time. So as she learns the language, she starts to become untethered from time as well, and so can experience events from the future, and that's what she was doing. That was pretty damn clever and creative. So next, number 11 on my list, from The Leftovers, Kevin is poisoned. So this one really shocked the hell out of me. I remember my mouth being like, ah. So this is in the second season where Kevin is experiencing, he has someone in his head, Patty, a character from the Guilty Remnant from the first season, who has died, but only he can see her, and she's taunting him and making his life a living hell, and he just wants her to go away, and he can't get her to go away, and so he goes to this strange, weird old dude who seems to have like these visions or whatever, seems to know what's going on, and he tells Kevin to drink this poison, and just after a few seconds he'll give him an antidote to revive him, and that will get rid of Patty. And so he takes it on faith, he drinks the poison that will kill him, and then the old guy then proceeds to shoot himself in the head, and I was like, what? They just, because we thought that Kevin was going to he was going to give an antidote. He'd come back to life and everything would be solved. But no, he shoots himself in the fucking head and there's no one else in the room. So no one's going to cure him. He's dead. Kevin's dead. And that other dude who said it would help him just kill himself. What the fuck? And it's followed up by a really mind-bending, twisty episode that totally justifies this. So yeah, that twist always stuck with me. Next, number 10 is from the movie The Usual Suspects. And if you've seen this movie, yeah, this kind of like Sixth Sense, this movie's built on a twist, but this is actually a much better movie, and it's a much better twist. Or at least it's a better movie. Yeah. So anyway, Verbal Kint is Keyser Söze. I am telling you, it's Keyser Söze. This was epic. This whole time there was this mythical crime lord who no one really knew who he was, called Keyser Söze, the man who was pulling all the strings and having everyone killed, and he was untouchable, and he was like so legendary, he was mighty. And our narrator for the film was someone with a bad leg, named Verbal Kint, who was like on a lower rung of the criminal world. He was a nobody. No one really cared about him, and he was telling these stories. And then they make you think that this other character in the film is in fact Keyser Söze, and then he walks away. But then the policeman detective who was interrogating him suddenly realized that a lot of the names and places that Verbal Kint was telling him throughout all of his stories were pictures and from articles and shit he had on his wall, making it clear that he was just making it all up all along, and he was in fact Keyser Söze. Still a very classic reveal. So number 9 on my list is Game of Thrones, The Red Wedding. Now, this is more of a shocking moment than it is a twist. It's not really a plot twist. I mean, it kind of is, but it's more of shocking. And I guess some people might, I was debating having this higher, and some people might think I should have it higher, but because this is the most well-known shocking moment. I mean, there's reaction videos all over YouTube of how shocked people were. I always tell this story about, because I was at film school at the time, watching this in the movie theater we had with film school with a bunch of friends from film school, and the reactions were crazy. There was one guy just sitting there going, no, 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 no. And the other guy went on the ground, started banging the ground and screaming, and I was just like, fuck! And there was all these different, and of course you had the smug book readers who were just laughing at all the reactions because they knew what was coming. But yeah, this is a classic one, so a lot of people may think I should have it higher, but you know what, I think as I was watching this, the writing was kind of on the wall. You kind of knew that what was coming, that the phrase would betray the Starks. You didn't know to the degree. You didn't know that they would absolutely slaughter everybody, that they'd stab a pregnant woman in her gut, and that they would just taunt him and slice the throat. So it was a way more brutal, which contributes to how fucking shocking it is. In fact, I would say it's more brutal in the show than it was in the books. But, yeah, it still has to be up there. It's still an incredibly classic, shocking moment. Number 8 on my list is Fight Club. Tyler Durden is the narrator all this time. So in the Fight Club, we're following this character who's never named. We just refer to him as the narrator, played by Edward Norton, and how he's had this crazy time and he's obsessed with consumerism, and he has to make sure he buys his house, everything, and his house has to be perfect, until he meets this guy named Tyler Durden, who turns his world upside down with his philosophy about not giving a fuck about anything, about how society sucks, and he ends up forming an underground club called Fight Club, where he teaches everyone this philosophy, and then Fight Club evolves into Project Mayhem, where they actually go out destroying property, and people get killed, and they want to have this plan to like destroy all these credit card buildings to raise debt and to create chaos, and he's very much against the narrator is very much against this, now trying to stop Tyler Durden until he finds out that he is in fact Tyler Durden, that they're both the same person. It's just a split personality. He's just he has insomnia and he becomes Tyler Durden, so his interactions with him are on his head, and that he is in fact the Tyler Durden that has created everything himself. And now doesn't really hold up to actual psychology, similar to Mr. Robot. As I said, the Mr. Robot kind of was emulating this. I always called it the Fight Club reveal. But, yeah, I do have to put this one higher, not just because I did it first, but I think it was a more powerful reveal for me. Some people said they saw this coming. I did not. I still thought it was absolutely... And again, it changed the whole nature of the film. And then you see the guy, the narrator, sort of wrestling with the fact that he is Tyler Durden. And then he has these... when he's fighting him, it's just like two sides of the same person, like fighting each other. Yeah, and I just love this movie. And I think this reveal really, really, really worked. Number 7 on my list, and again, getting back to episodic television, Star Trek Voyager, Nemesis. Chakotay was being brainwashed to fight a war. Now, I will defend me putting this above the Red Wedding and some other things like Kaiser Sose. Can already hear some people saying. But again, this is my own personal experience. I know apparently a lot of people don't even like this episode, which shocks. That's shocking. I'll put that on this list. That's a shocking memory that people don't like this episode. This episode is so good because it's so powerful, and that's why this thing makes it so high for me is the commentary it makes. So in this episode, Chakotay crashes on this planet, and he finds these people who are like fighting this really evil aliens looking like the Predators. They look like really evil, and they're going around killing all these people and enslaving them and killing children. And so Chakotay's fighting with them. At first he's like, no, I'm not going to fight your war for you. But then these atrocities happen, like he needs this little girl that helps him out, but then the aliens come and take her away and to kill her, and they kill like old people even, and enslave Chakotay. And so Chakotay gets so pissed off he agrees to fight in their war, and then he's fighting someone who looks to be like one of these aliens, but in fact is Tuvok, his friend from Voyager, who tells them that he's being deceived, that none of the things he thought happened ever happened. In fact, it was all a brainwashing facility. Everything was a simulation to brainwash him to fight these other aliens who actually were no worse than the other ones. It was just a normal war between two warring species. It's just the one that looked nice and looked like humans were the ones who were actually more fucked up and brainwashed people to fight their war for them. And so that shocked the hell out of me. That was not only was that a shocking twist, but it was a powerful one because it speaks is so much loud commentary about the power of propaganda and how people are made to think their enemy is evil, but really it's just two sides fighting in a war. But this does the full length, and it gets this message across so much stronger by making you think these aliens are evil, by doing the same trick on the audience that they do on Chakotay, and I fucking love it. Anyway, number 6 on my list, God, we're getting up to the really stuff now, is Dexter from the TV show Dexter. Rita has been killed. So Dexter is this serial killer, but happens to only kill other serial killers. So he only kills the bad guys. He works for the police, but on his free time, he kills serial killers to stop them from killing other people. And throughout the show, we see he has a girlfriend. At first, it's just to pretend to have a normal life. But we see him through the course of 4 seasons fall in love with Rita. And she has 2 kids, and he becomes a surrogate father to them, and they form this happy family. And he actually does start to fall in love with her. And in the 4th season, he has this really impossible foe that he's trying to defeat, played by John Lithgow. I'm trying to remember, is it the Trinity Killer, I think it was called? And they have this really cat and mouse, and the Trinity Killer finds out who Dexter is. And then eventually Dexter finally catches up to the Trinity Killer and kills him. So you think, well, that's it, that's that. Until he goes home and finds Rita dead in the bathtub because apparently the Trinity Killer had gotten to her first before Dexter had gotten to him. And fuck me, this really shocked the hell out of me. This really shook me up. This really disturbed me. I think this show never really recovered after this, though, because Rita was such a good character, and to kill her off was a really ballsy move, and it was shocking. It was so incredibly shocking, because you think, oh, Dexter wins the day again, but no, he actually failed. He actually led by going after the Trinity Killer. He led him back to her, and he's the reason why Rita's dead. And this stings. It really, I couldn't move at first after seeing this. It was just so shocking. But anyway, we'll move over to my number 5, which was actually quite similar to my number 6, to the one I just said, and that's from the movie Seven, The Box Reveal. What's in the box? Now, again, some people say, oh, that's a meme. What's in the box isn't such a funny, silly moment. The way Brad Pitt is going, look, what's in the box? I'm like, get the fuck out of here. It is a classic, amazing cinematic moment. Alright, so Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman played detectives who are hunting a serial killer, and the serial killer, who refers to himself as John Doe, turns himself in and says that he can reveal where the other 2 bodies are. So he takes him out to this, a remote place in the middle of nowhere to find the bodies, but there happens to be no bodies. Instead, a delivery person comes and delivers a box, and as John Doe is taunting Brad Pitt's character, he says that he was jealous of him, and so that he had a life with a beautiful wife and everything, so he had to take her head off, and that's what's in the box. And so at first he doesn't want to believe it. That's why he's going, what's in the box? And so John Doe wants Brad Pitt's character to kill him. He wants him to kill him in order to finish off his magnum opus or whatever the fuck. And Brad Pitt does in fact do so when he realizes that it is in fact his wife's head in the box. So this is a shocking reveal for several reasons. So it's shocking to me, especially in the mid-90s, having a detective movie that's about detectives trying to catch a killer, which in the 90s, these were quite common. They always catch the killer in the end. They always win. They always have a happy ending. The killer's done. They strive, and they have this big boss fight at the end, and they manage to catch the killer, and everything's all good. What I don't expect is for the killer to fucking win, for the killer to kill the hero's wife and put her box in the head in the box. That doesn't happen in films. What the hell is going on? Now, maybe people would be more, maybe this is more common in present day than it was in the 90s, but this shit did not happen. Especially in big block, maybe in like small indie films that, you know, you just get it that are streaming or whatever, but not these huge blockbusters are playing in theaters with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Like, wow. Like, and so it's shocking that they went that way, and it's shocking that they actually had the villain actually win. So that is another one of the most classic ones. So next, we'll get into my number 4, which I think a lot of people might not think it should be on this list or this high, but for me, it personally affected me one of the most. I was probably the most shocked, or one of the most shocked out of anything, and that is from the show Lost. Michael kills Ana Lucia and Libby. So, yeah, this shocked the hell out of me. So Michael's been the main character on the show. He's one of the good guys, one of the heroes, someone that we're fighting for. His son was abducted by these strange people who lived on the island before they got there called the Others. And so he went after them, chasing after them, and then never appeared again. And then all of a sudden he just shows up out of the blue. He's back again, and he has a story about how he scouted the Others and he wants to go on the mission to get his son back because he thinks he knows where they are. And then there's these other characters, Ana Lucia and Libby, who Ana Lucia, of course, is one of the main characters, and she has this whole episode about her, and she's wondering if she should kill this guy who they captured, who is in fact one of the Others, and she is contemplating this, and she really wants to do it. And then at the end of the episode, Michael comes to her and says, "I'll do it. Just give me the gun. I'll do it for you." So she hands him the gun, and instead of killing the other, he kills her. And then Libby shows up out of the blue, and he kills her too. And then he goes to the other guy, Henry Gale, who's trapped in the thing, and lets him go and shoots himself in the shoulder to make it look like that Henry Gale shot him. That was shocked. I remember being so, like, mouth agape. I was just like, I remember it like a whole body was tingling, and I was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, what happened? What's going on? Where am I? What's my name? Like, how could this happen? Oh my God, so he's one of their heroes. He's one of the good guys. How could he just shoot and kill those 2 women and let the guy go? Oh, wow. It was mind-blowing for me. So anyway, we'll get into number 3 on my list, which is from the movie Dark City. And the city is a spaceship. I love this movie. I think it's a very underrated movie, and do you knew there was something weird going on throughout the film? Like, the guy had amnesia. Everyone was saying that he was a serial killer, and he was trying to go talk to people he knew, and piece his life together, but things didn't seem right. And then there was these weird bald guys who would, like, put everyone to sleep and then reset the city and put them in different identities. You're like, what the fuck is going on? But then, so he's going on this quest to get to this beach because he keeps hearing about this beach, but he's never seen it. And so he goes out of his way to try to find it, and he bursts through the wall only to find space. They're in a spaceship. So apparently, and those bald dudes are aliens that have abducted a bunch of humans from Earth and are rearranging their lives and creating fictions for them and erasing their memories every night. And yeah, that completely. I was like, I didn't even know I was watching a science fiction. Well, I knew it was weird, but I didn't know there would be fucking space aliens in it, and that shocked me. And I love that. I think that was one of the most effective twists to a movie ever, and it really like contextualized the whole thing and just made it so interesting. So now we'll get into my number 2, which is also from Lost. This one is the flash forward reveal. We have to go back, Kate! We have to go back. Yeah, so this is an ever classic one. This is a hugely classic one, and really changed the whole nature of the show. So you know anything about Lost, you know it's about a group of people who are crashed on this island in a plane crash, and they're stuck on the island and they're trying to get home. So most people, I'm actually, to be fair, I was never one of these people, but most people assumed that the show was about them trying to get off the island, and as soon as they got off the island, then the show would end. That would be the, like Voyager's trapped in the Delta Quadrant. When they get home, the show ends. And so they think that's like the focus. But it was apparent to me, and perhaps others earlier on, or later as the show progressed, that it wasn't about trying to get off the island. It was about how the island was mystical and magical in on itself. And it was more about that rather than trying to get off the island. But this episode features our plane crash survivors getting the better of the others, which I love, and using that ability to get rescued. And at the end, we have our main character Jack, as throughout the entire episode is doing everything he can to get his people off the island, get them off the island, because there's a boat just off the shore and they just need to contact this boat, and he's going out of this way, fighting people, sacrificing people, killing people, just striving and doing anything possible to get off his island, and nothing. And John Locke is saying, oh, you don't need to leave the island, and he's like, yes, we do, we need to leave, and he's out of his way. And that is intercut through, because of how Lost's format, they intercut it with flashbacks. That's what they always do, right? They show flashbacks of people's past. So they're intercutting it with these scenes of Jack with the beard. He's a drug addict, he's taking pills, he's losing his job, he's losing his mind, he's depressed, he attempts suicide, and all this crazy shit, and life is completely falling apart, which would kind of seem to fit in his backstory. But at the end, we get the reveal that these flashbacks are actually flash forwards, and what we're seeing is his future after he gets back from the island, because we see Kate, one of the other characters on the island, pull up to him in Los Angeles, and he reveals to her that they never should have left the island, that they need to go back. So not only is this shocking, because it shows that what we thought was his past was actually the future. Not only is it shocking because we see that they actually did get home in the future, but it's mainly shocking because it's the juxtaposition of Jack in the island storyline wanting to get home so badly, doing everything in his life possibly to get home. He needs to get off the island at all costs, juxtaposed to Jack in the future desperately wanting to get back to the island and regretting ever leaving it. That is the powerful twist. That is the powerful character change that was so incredibly mind-blowing, that completely blew my mind. I think it is one of the most classic twists of all time. So now we will get to my number one, which is from the movie Memento. Lenny lets himself to forget in order to kill people. I love Memento. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. I said before, it's my top 3 favorite movies ever made, and I think it's one of the most unique movies ever made. It's about a guy who has no short-term memory, and he loses short-term memory. And the film is mostly has 2 different timelines going at the same time, like intercut. One that's going backwards and one that's going forward. Now, the one that's going forward is mostly just explaining the film. It's mostly exposition, to be fair. But the one that's going backwards is the main storyline, and so because it shows each scene in reverse order, it kind of puts the audience in the mindset of having the short-term memory loss, because like the main character, we don't know what came before, what preceded this scene, which I thought was very fucking clever. And so the movie is about the protagonist, Lenny, trying to find the man who killed his wife. But at the end of the film, it's revealed that he had already killed the man that killed his wife. His police friend Teddy helped him do it. That already happened, and showed him a picture. You already did this. But he let himself purposely forget that he called his wife's killer, and so that he could be manipulated then to kill other people. And so this cop would use him to kill other people by making him think it was his wife's killer. And so he purposely, once he finds this out, he intentionally frames the detective guy to be, for his future self to think is his wife killer. So he sets himself up to kill this guy while thinking like the future version of himself would have no memory of this, so he would think he was his wife's killer. Pretty fucked up. So it changes the entire nature of the film. It shows that he is not, in fact, the protagonist. He's an antagonist. He's an anti-hero. And that's one of the strengths of this film, I think, is that none of these characters they're all like despicable, and they're all using people. And he is probably the worst, because we think, oh, this poor guy, he lost his wife. He has this disability where he can't remember, and people are manipulating. Isn't he such a poor guy? But then we find out he's like the worst. that in fact his wife wasn't killed by this guy in the first place. That his wife sort of tested him because she didn't believe his short-term memory loss was real, and kind of tricked him into poisoning her with diabetes medicine, because she didn't believe that he would do it, but he did, and he couldn't live with this, and some part of him, subconscious part or whatever, couldn't live with this, and so wanted to force himself to kill other people and believe this narrative that he made up. It is fucked up. But it's so fucking interesting, and it's so intricate, and it's so masterfully done. This is masterful storytelling, and the twist itself is makes the entire movie, holds it all together. It makes it so great, and it makes you change everything that you thought you knew about this movie. And that's why once you watch it, at least for me, as soon as I watched it, I was like, I need to go watch it again, and I gotta watch it again, and I gotta watch it again. Because it is there, you pick up little pieces and everything the more you watch it. It's just so fucking good. So that is my number one plot twist / shocking moment. So, as I said, this list is probably incomplete. I probably forgot some things. I probably would change the order around if I wanted to. And whatever. So it's by no means definitive, but in 2 weeks of thinking about it, this is the best I can do. And I mostly stand by this because, as I said, and again, it's a personal list for me. I know everyone's other list would be really different and have things that affected them personally, but for me, these are the moments that really affected me, that really shook me to the core, and I was truly shocked by. So, thanks so much for watching, and thank you, of course, for Ricky and all those who support me on Patreon. And their work is very much appreciated. I'll actually give a quick shout out to all my supporters who support me on Patreon. We have Anthony D. Benedictus, Ricky, Matty Jester, Joel Lavals, Brian A., Alessandro Miguelcio, and Norman Buchwald, Stephen Kennedy, Brenton Berg, Allison Fordyce, and Brandon Neal Howells. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you to everyone for watching this video. And if you did enjoy it, please leave a like and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more content, and thanks a lot for watching.